Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave and
Mickey!
Yay on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on, you guessed it, www.revolution.radio, where it's more than just radio, so jump into the chat room if you can. This is show number 388.
Yeah, 8 ATM 300.
Very nice. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. Thanks, Jeb Air. Yeah, thank you. I get it. If you missed Solaris's show, which we hope you didn't, but if you've only just jumped in now, then you missed a great show. She had Dwight Lilly on, and they were talking about some great topics. The spirit and world events topic of discussion was what it was about. It was actually really, really cool. But if you missed her show, don't worry about it. Don't fret. It's easy. All you have to do is subscribe to the archives at the station, and then you can listen to not just her shows, but our shows as well, we hope, and all of the other host shows that are there. They're all there. Every one of them. So you can download it and listen, or take part in. You can't take part in hindsight. No, you can listen to it and then tune in next time when they're on, and take part in their show as well. And that's how easy it is. And it's your own time. That's what we do now, right? We only listen to things in our own time. I'm sort of almost moving completely away from broadcast media, which is broadcast on a schedule. I don't, not so much. I watch things when I want to watch them, so maybe you can do the same. Mackie and I have to apologise because I've understood that I've been mispronouncing the local custodians of land where I live, Mackie, who are the Darkenjung. Darkenjung, it is.
Okay. Well, look, we forgive you.
I hope. Thanks, native inheritant. And where? What's the name of the people where you live, Mackie?
The Darak or Daruk. I don't want to mispronounce it, so I give both pronunciations.
Very nice. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. And don't forget that beneath all of the things that we've created are lands which have had stories passed down for, I'm maybe underestimating a little here, but 240,000 generations. That's something else. And they were custodians of the land. They looked after it. They didn't, plunder it for resources. Yeah, sure, we need some of those resources. But, to be honest, how much can the earth take of our plundering? Good question. I just did that, that Morpheus expression, where you can't see it, but I did that same expression. You think that's air you're breathing? Do you remember that?
I do.
In the dojo scene? Very, very cool.
Oh, yeah. You think that's air you're breathing?
Well, it used to be air. It used to be air. I'll tell you, Mackie, we did something really cool today. We went to a crystal fair. A fair in which people who have stones and crystals and that style or genre of things to sell their wares, they clustered together at the showground near where I live, and it was really cool. I love crystals. I love rocks. Crystals in his rocks, but I love them for that each element of everything is completely different, and you either feel a vibration from it and you like it, and you connect with it. You can just dismiss it as hooey, and that doesn't matter to you, right? Doesn't matter to me that you want to do that. I like it because they all come in different shapes and sizes. There might be something that aligns with you, harmonizes with you, and you're good to go. And then I mentioned to my girls to ask the vendor if they found something they liked. If it's some kind of crystal, not a rock, but a crystal. If they found a crystal they liked, they're to ask the vendor if it's good in the activation of rivers. Because there's a very funny comedy routine where this poor fellow is up there, and his mother's been activating rivers. He pokes a bit of fun at it, like I did when I was, a teen, and my mother was a medium and into the psychic phenomena, which I dismissed at the time, thinking the whole thing was rubbish. Of course, I've since learnt that I was wrong. Of course, you can't, when you're a teenager, believe everything your parents say. That's the time when you're meant to rebel against it all and finding your own solution. I found that they were indeed right. And that was where the fun started. So anyway, how are you, Becky?
Oh, look, I'm good. No childhood regrets for me. But, look, you're right though, and again, this is really the point that this journey we're on is comprised of a variety of different stages and a variety of different approaches. We all come to this journey of discovery, this mystery, if you will, from different starting points, right? And a lot of people, I myself, I'll be honest with you, I completely dismissed most of the esoteric, the Kabbalah, Tree of Life, all these calculations, astrology. And my grandmother, she was an astounding astrologer. Not reading it, but actually creating them. Being able to mathematically work out. It is, and my mother, she made not fun of her, but she was quite astonished she couldn't do it. My grandmother, like I said, she was quite good. She also was good with the cards, and a devout Catholic to boot. So there you go. The two don't really go together. But yeah, so. And this realization that Dave just described, that maybe there may be more to it, and he can now accept that his mother or his parents at large were right about some of the things they had said. He has now incorporated this previously difficult fact into his overall journey, and this is really what this is, because it isn't about a single pinpoint solution. I've been recently doing a lot of research, a lot of reading as well, but I'll get to that when we get to the show's topic, which in fact is megalithic builders, and the megalithic age. Megalithic again, just means large stone. That's all it means. People like to sound smart when they use like Greek and Latin derived phrases. Oh, look at me! I can speak science. Well done,
science,
you. Well. You science all day long. No, but what I found interesting though, and then I know Dave has got a bucket load of news stories here, but I just want to mention two which I found interesting. Actually, three. It's really three. So one, America offered to buy Greenland. Yeah. And the Scandinavians didn't want to borrow it, so it's all good. So as a jest, Denmark offered to buy the US. Now, these land purchases, while today it might seem outlandish, they were quite common. Alaska, for example, was purchased by the US from Russia. So Russia actually owned Alaska. Imagine if Russia had kept Alaska.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I mean, seriously, the geopolitical impact of that would have been astounding. They're similar, the territories of Texas and New Mexico, right? However they were acquired, they went through fairly recently. They were in different hands. The English and the Dutch made a trade. They made a trade. The English had the island of I can't remember what it's called, to be honest with. It's somewhere in the Indian Ocean. It's an island, and its main produce is nutmeg, right? And the Dutch.
Oh yes, that one. Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember the name, unfortunately. But if anybody in the chat room, please let me know. Anyway, so the Dutch had the Nutmeg Island. Had the island of Manhattan, and the British had Nutmeg Island, and the Dutch really wanted the nutmeg. They really, back then nutmeg was the thing, right? And we'll give you this worthless rocky island of Manhattan. We can't do anything with it. And the British said, sure thing, we'll take it, and you can have this Nutmeg Island. And so
Bandanese,
that actually,
Bandanese island chain, right?
Bandanese, thank you. That's exactly right. So that actually happened, and there were many others. In fact, Australia was called New Holland, and
that's right.
And New York, in its original settlement, or the original New York settlement,
wasn't it?
Exactly right,
Yeah.
Neo Amsterdam. Yeah, so the Dutch were everywhere at first, not really taking much or making much capital out of though, because they were true trading. They were true traders. They weren't colonizers. They were traders, like the Portuguese. Whereas the Spanish and the English, they truly were colonizers. But yeah, so it's interesting. So that happened. Another thing that's interesting is that Donald Trump said, "You gotta vote for me if you love me or you hate me." that's it's the best election campaign.
Yeah.
You got to vote for me. They got no choice. I mean, wow, right? It's,
How else can you
facts,
exchange long,
right?
long polymers, right? Yeah.
That's boom right there. That's right. If you can think of a better way to exchange long polymers, I'd like to hear it. They're holding hands. But yeah, and finally, a little bit more serious though.
Yeah.
Is the official coroner's report, autopsy report, the coroner's report in Australia, I guess we call it, has come in to determine the cause of death for Jeff Epstein. He was ruled to have committed suicide, and he hung himself with such force that he managed to break several bones in his neck. Now, there are two ways you can die when. So as an execution, people used to be hanged, and it's still are in some places of the world. And what happens is they usually weight the person, so they attach weights to the person, and so when the trapdoor opens, as it were, then that additional weight would make you heavier, fall faster, if you will, and break your neck. That's the humane way of going. It's not easy to break someone's neck. It really isn't, especially by hanging. Whereas most of the lynchings and the hangings that either in suicide or that you see when a mob does it is by strangulation. The death is not because you break your neck, but by strangulation. So there's two very distinct ways to go when you do this. But as I said, to achieve the breaking of the neck or the breaking of bones in the neck is no small feat, and not usually seen in suicides or even lynchings, if you will. But that was not glossed over. It was mentioned, but and I was still ruled a suicide. Now, is that true or not? Honestly, I don't think so. I don't think so. Again, you have to look at the profit motive. You have to follow who would benefit, and the biggest benefit, of course, is that this will never go to trial. Yeah, at least not a criminal trial. Look, this is still a civil trial, but this is not about money. The victims are now going to sue the estate of Epstein, as well as some of his former employees. But it will not be a criminal trial. What's the difference, you ask? Well, in the civil suit, it is all about money and the payout. Nobody cares who was involved or anything like that, right? Unless it could substantially add to the amount of money people make. No. In the criminal trial, though, there would have been a significant portion of it dedicated to finding more facts, putting people on the stand, finding out, conspirators and collaborators and who participated, just to understand who carries, partial guilt, if you will, in these activities, which they happen. No one disputes that these activities happened, and we know that presidents and billionaires and royals all were part of that circle, friends that Epstein has. We don't know if they all, did all these things, but we do know that they were buddies. And I tell you, I have buddies, and if you're good buddies and you travel together and all that, you understand that some people might have, issues and problems, and you try to help them. Obviously, it's impossible not to notice certain things. It's my point. When you're someone's friend, if you turn a blind eye or you condone or even participate, that would make you then guilty in my mind as well. But sorry, so Dave, these are the things I wanted to mention. Let's purchase Greenland. Why not? That's going to be the ice is going to be gone soon anyway, right? The Greenland ice shelf is melting. We have and Greenland is huge, by the way. It's massive. People underestimate the size of Greenland. It's ginormous. Okay. But go ahead. Yeah.
No. Maybe they just wanted to buy it so they could make the story go away. Ban all research on Greenland.
There's no Greenland. What Greenland?
just like in Australia with the asylum seekers, they called them boat people, and then they started housing them outside of Australian jurisdiction, so no Australian lawyer could fight on their behalf. That's the real case, right there.
Yeah.
What it meant, we just kept filling up all these places, giving those towns millions of dollars as a compensation, and then filling up like essentially jails with families. Right, that was pretty much it. The sad story about that is that the government then made it, because it's no longer an Australian topic, but it's now legislated. You can't just send someone to that site to investigate humanity and human treatment of prisoners, because that's now illegal, right? And so yeah, that's what they could have done, Mickey. They could have bought Greenland, right? And the US could buy it and say, you know what? The whole thing's hooey. There's no climate change. Greenland's just fine. And they go, can we have a look? Nope. Just like the gold. Can we have a look at all that gold you got to back your currency? No. Right? Where is all that gold that you've been storing for us? We gave you our gold to store it. Where is it? I'll show you a bar of gold, but it may not necessarily be yours. Right?
But can we have it? No, you cannot have it.
You can't.
Go away.
So
now, go away!
I don't want to talk to you no more.
Go away.
So yeah, on Epstein, I wrote a little piece here on Epstein.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I'm questioning whether Epstein's truly dead. Now, I'm basing my opinion, because this is an opinion piece, I'm basing my opinion on the only single picture. I look at a number of pictures of him being removed from the prison on what looked like an ambulance gurney, right? They're, a trolley, they're wheeling him out, and, that's what was put around the media, and the other ones, sort of die. The other images died a slow death, no pun intended. Now, that photograph of him, and I matched it to photographs of Epstein that I found perfect side-on views, and that was my own research, and I've got some imaging to show that, back up the proof. And I did an opaque to transparent overlay, and I transitioned the two photos between each other, and it's a different person. Your ear doesn't change after you die, right? The ears are different, and an ear is also a fingerprint style of recognition of someone. Totally right.
But we all know that in rigor mortis, yes, because I'm an expert now. You see, in rigor mortis, the ear changes significantly, and everything else too. So if the person doesn't look like anything like the person alive, that is perfectly acceptable. Also true. Now, silence everywhere.
So I'm glad we have an expert in the studio with us right now, and what makes it what makes it fantastic? What makes my story ridiculous? Oh, you'll just shut up.
Yeah, you shut up now, because I have the peer-reviewed doctor. Yes,
peer-reviewed doctor. That's right. So while he was being removed from the from the prison, I found that photo to be unconvincingly fake. That's my opinion, and the reason was from the ear and the nose. The rest of it, it showed all the breaking of the blood vessels in the face, and is consistent with a strangulation, right? Not consistent, maybe consistent with hanging, but usually the blood, once it's released, drains down, and it's not all caught up in the head, right? Anyway, the other thing that the coroner had announced was that the few bones that were broken are more consistent with a strangulation than a hanging. That's what they said, and then they said, well, but it's still suicide. So while it looks like he might have attempted to strangulate himself to death and broke some bones in his neck, he must have been successful. That's really weird. Now, there's 2 points that I found unusual, and that was that he was only announced deceased at the hospital. There's no coroner at the prison to announce the time of death, and they wheeled his still presumed alive body on a hospital gurney, not in a bag, not in a body bag, so he wasn't declared dead by the paramedics that transferred the body, even, right? There was no resuscitation occurring on that body to keep this person alive. I'm saying person because it's not Epstein. It can't have been, because your ear doesn't change when you die. And so he was, the body, whoever it was given to us as the masses evidence that it was Epstein that had passed away. The normal processes, the processes of attempting to maintain someone's life, weren't in place. So the prisoners, the prison themselves, didn't try to resuscitate him. The ambulance staff didn't just attempt it, because that's normally the duty of care. You have a body, you could bring them back to life, right? It's possible. But no, they put a body on basically in a stretcher and wheeled it into the ambulance. And then the second one, look, it's a maximum security prison, and in the cell that he was in, there is by no means anything that you can tie anything off to. There's no, the door handle is down lower than your waist, right? That's going to be useless. There's no hanging light. There's no bars. These are solid, flat walls. The bed is on the ground and it's secured to the ground. You can't lift it. There's nothing in there. And above you, it's just flat. There's all flat surfaces. And so unless he had like a sky hook that he just held in the air and hung himself from that, it's impossible to die from hanging, because there's nothing there to tie to. So, and it was supposed to be observed every 3 minutes, but, oddly enough, the staff said, well, he's no longer on suicide watch, so, we must have fallen asleep. And now they've admitted falling asleep and not even attempting to observe Epstein in jail.
You're right. He was taken off suicide watch, but the problem here is two things, actually, then a consideration. One, the two guards have now been stood down that had the shift at the time, as well as the warden. They've both been, in fact, the warden has been transferred, actually, out of that prison, Manhattan. And so my consideration here is, what will happen to the warden and to two prison guards? Let's keep an eye on that. Let's see if anything happens to those guys. If it does, it would prove, in my mind, beyond the shadow of a doubt that something is fishy.
So where's the security release of where's the FOIA release of the video evidence?
Yeah, well, where is it? There's
What's
nothing.
the visitation
Nothing.
list? Show me the area outside the cell, at least, right?
Yep.
For the 10 hours on either side of his death. Want to see it, because I'm really, I have to be honest, just to be honest with you, and sadly again in my opinion, I'm not sure that is Epstein. And I think since the picture did not have Epstein in it, I wonder which bagman they used to pass off as him. This is the question, right? If it wasn't him, then what poor schmo did they find that was as close a resemblance as they could find, right? So that he may live. Maybe he's on, and this has been bandied about at the moment. Maybe he made a plea deal. Maybe he's witness protection. Don't know. Maybe it's, as it's been said, that he was the honeypot to collect usable material against the famous, should they need to use it. Right? Now, this is a big leap, and I just want you to confirm this is only my opinion about what I've currently been looking into and trying to come up with a reason for it. Because to me, it doesn't seem to make... It's not a cut and dry case that if the body wasn't really him, which I can't see it was, then he can't be dead. Then I've got to come up with these other ways of being able to explain it. And like, maybe... So I don't think he was actually whacked. I don't think he was whacked. And there's a couple of people here like Jackson, Prince, and Rivers. Remember Joan Rivers? Now, remember, Prince was shortly after an interview where he declared the Illuminati was ruling everyone, and it was really early days too. And then suddenly he just turned up dead. Jackson had done the same thing. He was trying to get messages out on live television where they couldn't stop it. And Rivers said Michelle Obama was Michael Obama and was a transvestite, a transsexual. I can't remember the quote, but she had trans in it. And actually, because everybody knows that. Was she just making a joke? Because, she went in for a routine operation and never recovered from it. Yeah, that's slipping someone a couple of $1,000 just to go out there and make a coffee for him. Oops, she had too much anesthetic, right? I don't know the cause of death, but anyway, she died. No, that's terrible. Maybe Epstein is an operative. Maybe it's just all too convenient. All of this stuff is just too convenient. But that's what I'm saying. In my opinion, if that isn't him on the gurney, then who was it? And then what do we do next? We just, keep our eyes open and keep examining the news. Because it led me into this thing, right? Everyone I've spoken to has told me, here's the segue, Mickey, by the way. Everyone's been telling me that the shootings and stabbings and violence is on the rise. And it seems to be hitting brand new heights. So I thought, okay, well, I agree with that. To me, look. What about you, Mickey? Do you feel like there's massacres are going off the charts and there's more people dying and?
So, in the scheme of things, to be honest with you, and this is notwithstanding the fact that I've read your notes, I think the problem lies elsewhere. I don't want to steal your thunder. So I have never felt that there's more of it. It just seems there's more of it.
Mm. And that's the thing, right? So I did some research and I found that homicides are down from 2005 figures. And that's global levels. So I looked into what makes me think they're higher. And I found my attention kept going back to the media again. So more media attention, to me, is the answer. I thought I would look as far back as the 1300s and do a comparison to today. And we're way down. So, I don't remember, Mickey. I'm just putting it out there, right? I'm 52 years old. I'm not one of those the dynastical, families. I don't disappear for a while and pop up somewhere else with the same name as we've done on a prior show. I'm not a vampire. I don't live very long. But all I can say is that when I look back through the records that have been kept, we're way down, right? So from a Northern European view, so Netherlands, Scandinavia, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, and England, there was about 40 persons per year per 100,000 people in their population. So this is the only way we can do a true and accurate comparison against different groups of people living in cities and places around the world, is calculate the number of people there and work it out as a percentage of people dying. So in the 1300s, it was about 40 people, and then in the 1700s, it was down to about 10 people per 100,000 people, and then in the 1900s, it was down to about 5 people per 100,000. And today, it's between about a half a person per 100,000 people to 1 per 100,000 people per year dying in those cities. But then I thought, well, that's not good enough, because I want to see a broader picture. But we can't go back to the 1300s in the US. But there is data from, say, maybe the 1950s through to today that I could find. And in the USA, per 100,000 people, it's in the 1950s, it was about 4.5 people that were dying. Then it rose up really high to just past double. In the 1980s to about 1995, there was 10 people per 100,000 people who were dying through homicide. But today it's back down to 4.5 people. That's equal to the 50s. It's just as safe being out on the street per 100,000 people safe as it was in the 50s. The media is showing us a completely different aspect to this, and it's bringing it in our face and making us believe that it's really terrible. And that's where I was going with this, Meg, because, look, the source of all of this is ourworldindata.org, and as homicides you can go to, you can have a look at a whole bunch of things. But the global average today is held high. It's not because of the USA, Russia, or South Africa, but the main culprits are Mexico, Brazil, and India. No surprises. No surprises there. You are most likely to die by homicide if you're aged between 15 and 49. Woohoo! We made it out of that group, Mickey.
All right, now we should just go to all the dangerous places in the world. Because clearly, statistics don't lie, right?
They don't lie. They do not lie. So out of the 400,000 people who die of homicide every year, 300,000 of them are between 15 and 49 years old. But, that's actually, you can avoid the statistics because the people who are killing those people are between 20 and 29 years old. They're most commonly the offenders. So, you know what? Defriend everyone between 20 and 29 and stay away from that age group entirely, and you're more than likely going to live through it. And I have to look at it comically, right? Because it's tragic that we should be losing almost 500,000 people a year through homicide. So with the massacres, the gun controls, the buybacks, and the carry laws, it is the media which is to blame for our increased awareness. In my opinion, I think this is to control us, i.e. George Orwell, 1984, just bringing fear to us, right, when there really is less fear than we should be applying to it. Also to bring in new laws, possibly. And just maybe it is to make us safer, make it safer for the elites.
Go on.
No, does it make sense?
Yeah, I was going to agree with you until this week. So yes, I think the gun control and all that. Naturally, I mean that's what the Nazis did when they first invaded anyone. They just made gun control a thing. What you don't need gun control. You need gun education and the sensible treatment of human beings. But that's beside the point. But having said that, yes, I would have agreed with you. Anybody with a weapon, be it a knife, a sword, a gun, whatever, would have the upper hand anywhere, right? So I mean, you can hold people at bay and make them scared. Not in Australia, though. I tell you what. There was a terrible incident that happened near my work, or Dave's work, in fact, as well, in Sydney. Literally 100 meters down the street from where we work, where a man killed a woman in an apartment and went on a rampage in the street. Well, a rampage, he stabbed one woman, and then he was stopped by a whole bunch of regular Australians, like just people right in the street, with milk crates.
And chairs.
In chairs. So obviously, maybe you don't know Sydney, but imagine any old city in the world, and there'd be chairs on the pavement from cafes. Maybe some cafes or restaurants have milk crates out, ready to be taken away by the delivery people, whatever it might be. But there they are, milk crates, plastic chairs, and they use those because what you need to do is you either close the distance between you and the weapon really quickly if it's a knife. You have to, or a gun, or you stay really far away. So you have to close the distance, or you stay really far away. Either, right? The further away you stay from any weapon, the safer you are, unless you get really, really up close and personal. So just this person was armed with a butcher's knife. People had these milk crates to block off, I guess, any stabbing attempts. So the meme that was my most favorite this week on Facebook was, "No, we don't need guns. We got milk crates," in reference to violence and such. In America, they would have get shot or people get shot. No. In Australia, we got milk crates. And you know what? That's why I still have high hopes for Australia and even a metropolis such as Sydney, where people still display common sense and not an attitude of, it's someone else's problem. And still have that civil courage as well to do the right thing. If all hell broke loose, for argument's sake, and things went sideways real quick, I think in Australia, I really believe this, we have a pretty good chance of weathering the worst of it. Simply because of how we approach life and how people are. There's still mateship, that sense of, mateship is not friendship. Mateship is deeper and somewhat more egalitarian. Australia very much believes in giving everybody a fair go. Even now, even still to this day, I believe that's part of our psyche here. And that's why I think if you know, when the chips are down, I think Australia is going to be okay. I'm not going to say we're going to fly through it, but I think we're going to be okay. But yeah, sorry, Dave. My favorite image this week was of a gun, and then the next to it was a milk crate. Australia's answer to gun control is the milk crate.
I think we should have a segment called "Favorite Meme of the Week" or the Just Meme of the Week.
I know, right?
Because there was only two words. It was America had a picture of a gun, and Australia a picture of a milk crate. My favorite of the same era, the same ilk, the genre, was the two police officers standing there, and one had they both had a milk crate on their utility belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great. I saw it.
I love Photoshoppers. Well done for creating these memes for us. And it really did say everything. It like that person will have their day in court, right? They're going to. They weren't shot dead at the scene. The only reason he probably wasn't shot was because the people got to him first and put him into a position where he could be taken without lethal force. For those of you who like space, like me, I look at the stars every moment that I've got from my house when I'm walking at night. I love looking up at the stars and hopefully going to see something. But we all missed it. There was some, I think the Perseids were this last week. But the thing that I want to talk about is the thing we can't see, and that is a doomed comet. A star grazer fell into the sun, and it happened on the 15th, and it was part of a large group of Kreutz star grazers, which have been observed for hundreds of years, by the way. They're named after Heinrich Kreut. Is that Kreut or Kreut? Kreut.
Well, the way it's here, it's Crete.
Yeah, right, Crete. Okay, so Heinrich Kreut this is between the 1880s and the 1890s. He discovered a band of comets which are thought to have been fragments from a giant ancient comet which got too close to the sun and broke up and then became a string of comets. And they're an extremely elliptical orbit. Like, it's so tight in, and it comes from like out past the Oort cloud. And they're star grazers, but not all of them. You'd think that the whole solar system would fill up with all these tiny comets, but most of them just burn up when they get too close to the sun. Because remember, they're made of frozen carbon dioxide and frozen oxygen and frozen nitrogen. You can think of each one of these different chemicals, substances, pardon me, and frozen water, and they're all out there in the Oort cloud, and they clump together, effectively get nudged by something and come in. The frozen carbon monoxide will burn off first as soon as it enters like this the hottest zone, starting feeling the sun's light on it, and it becomes enough to burn it away. Anyway, if the whole thing is made up, it's glued together by that, it'll break up into small pieces. But it must have been giant, the original comet, and it was a documented comet from the ancient world that he was researching. That he ended up finding all of these, maybe 2,500 comets, are now all related to this initial massive comet. Crazy stuff. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Great news. Like, it just fascinates me, right? That the space thing that we can't fathom. It's so big, right?
It's so big. So my daughter, I think I told you, my daughter asked me what's the biggest number. I said there's no biggest number. She goes, what do you mean? It's in 1,000. And she's like 5 years old, right? And I said no. This in fact it's infinity, really, if you wanted to. But infinity is really more an abstract concept than a number. And she goes, what do you mean? Well, it never stops. She goes, oh. So there's no, assuming the 8 that's on its side. I said, yeah, that's the infinity number, exactly. Mm-hmm. So for her, for her mind, of course, there was quite an amazing concept to come to. There is no last number. Obviously, the same cannot be said for the smallest number, like the Planck length, for instance. Mm-hmm. So we have a smallest number, but we can't conceive of the largest number, right? So there's some mathematical oddities in our universe here, which I find fascinating. In space, of course, you're right. Space is big, right? But just how big? And it's again, it's a scale thing. And I mean, people find it difficult to comprehend the size of our planet, and then its position, in our solar system,
even
and the solar
shape,
system.
Mickey.
Even its shape. It's a coin, I tells you. It's a rhomboid coin. No, it's a Mandelbrot set. No, it's an inverted helium
It's a
sphere.
steroid.
Yes, sure. Whatever you want to call it. It's yeah. But we all know it's actually a Möbius strip. We all know that stuff.
I think it's a movie.
So,
Pteroid.
of course it is. No, but scale is really difficult, and because we are self-aware, and I think that's the biggest problem. We've got self-awareness. We are infinitely able to gaze upon our own labels and contemplate the nature of the universe.
Well, that's going to be the first to go when the revolution comes, isn't it, Mickey? With the revolution, self-awareness.
No, yes, self-awareness and all navels. No more navels. Go on. We're abolishing all navels. No, it's really interesting that we have this complete lack of proportionality. Because we take ourselves as the measure of all things, Dave, right? Now, if you look at it if you look at the world from a cosmic perspective, we could not be less significant. I mean, it's not possible to put this in not too fine a point, right?
Oh, the tardigrade, self-awareness program that it's currently working towards, self-improvement. They've got to feel equally insignificant, or more so.
But the tardigrade, and if you don't know what this is, it's a little creature, tiny little creature, but it's perfect. It can live in virtually any environment. It's perfectly adapted. It can freeze. It can even live in space if you really wanted it to.
Well, they're on the moon now, apparently.
The tardigrade is the most perfectly adapted creature I think we've come across thus far. Multicellular organism, I mean. Multicellular,
That's
right?
It sort of looks like a I don't know. What's the animal that kills more humans in Africa? A hippopotamus. It's sort of like it's sort of like a very tiny hippopotamus with baggy skin, but four legs, 6 legs. It's an insect family, but it's so hardy, Mackie, that they say that they must have been on the outside of the lunar lander.
Correct.
And that they've fallen off, and now they're living on the moon.
In fact, it's stowaway creatures on the moon confound international space law that was posted one day ago, and it's called a water bear or a moss piglet.
Right. Yep.
And it's a water-dwelling 8-legged segmented micro animal. Okay, so it's got 8 legs. So it's the architecture of it is somewhat different to ours, but again, don't forget we lost 95% of all species. Yeah, and still this tardigrade, okay. This tardigrade is still more closely related to us than any other alien creature out there in the universe. Okay, just to be clear. So the tardigrade, it's a fascinating creature, and you can only really see it with a really very powerful microscope. Okay, and there are actually 1,000 known species within that phylum. Anyway,
really,
they're almost indestructible, and like Dave said here, can even survive outer space. Now, this is interesting. This month, space enthusiasts were shocked to learn that an Israeli lunar lander that crashed into the moon's surface in April actually had some passengers on board. A tiny capsule filled with dehydrated microscopic organisms known as tardigrades. These little water bears, known to withstand very extreme environments, may have survived the wreck. Almost no one knew they were on board until a recent report on Wired, the Wired magazine, revealed they had been added to the mission last minute and without any governmental approval. So, does anyone live on the moon? The answer is now an unequivocal yes. Tardigrades are living on the moon.
The next thing we're gonna get a knock at the door, right? Like your children have been mucking up next door, and they're gonna be like moon living the Watchers, right? The Watchers that live on the moon. They're gonna have a bag full of tardigrades, and they're gonna go, you left these behind, or it's suddenly that the moon starts fizzing electrically, right? And it shorts it out, and it's the tardigrades, and the people go, we're out of here, right?
Yes,
and take them with them.
Take that. Wouldn't that be something? I want to share something. With you, which is really interesting. Okay, this is what I want to share with you. There's actually this is the same article, right? Again, in this tardigrade article, it says here, the paragraph: with the moon's high radiation, violent temperature swings, and almost non-existent atmosphere, it's likely that the tardigrades will meet the same fatal fate as other biological materials that have been sent to the moon. Although excessive uncontrolled biological incrementation on the moon's surface is not scientifically desirable, small quantities of tardigrades encapsulated in amber are likely to be of minimal environmental impact. Now, that's not what I want to share with you, but
environmental impact of tardigrades on the moon. Hilarious.
Be the same. I know they changed the ecology. We destroyed our ecosystem. What I want to focus on: meet the same fatal fate as other biological materials that have been sent to the moon. Mm-hmm. The largest biological material that was allegedly sent to the moon is us. We were the largest biological. But everything else here has died pretty much when it was exposed. In fact, Chang'e, the Chang'e 4, which is the recent Chinese lander, touched on January 3 during the lunar day. Scientists on Earth instructed the tin, which had some fruit flies in it, to activate a system for adjusting temperature, light, and water. The system worked until Saturday, January 12th, when night started to fall on the landing site, which was the von Karman crater. At night, a night on the moon is about as long as 14 days on Earth. Scientists then powered off the tin, ending the experiment as the seeds, yeast, and fruit fly eggs froze when temperatures fell below minus 50 degrees centigrade. That was the end of those guys. Yeah. So that's again,
right? They'll be fine.
But my point is, it's really tough to survive on the moon. It's tough to send anyone there. Radiation, temperature swings, all that wonderful stuff. Yet, we insist that it was an uncontestable event. I believe that it is contestable. Pointers. Anywho, so that's interesting, Dave. We almost come to the end of the first hour.
Yep.
We've got a few more moments left. Sorry, that was wrong. It was actually Heinrich Kreut. Kreut was the
Kreut. I can't do that.
There you go.
So
all good.
Thank you. 50,000 people. On another note, 50,000 people have been displaced in Bangladesh due to a fire that ripped through the shantytown slum this week. No deaths were reported though. And I'm gonna put out there, in my opinion, I'm gonna ask a question: was it a developer clearance? I'm not sure. We'll have to find out, right? Well, I'm not sure we'll ever find out. But you know those developer clearances when suddenly a fire burns down a warehouse and now there's a new building there.
Yeah. Oh, that was convenient. Yes, convenient.
Yeah, that's what it was. Right. Another celebrity died this week, Peter Fonda.
Yes, I saw that.
From what I understand. And the last thing, I got 2 minutes, but the last thing that I wanted to mention was the Pakistan versus India row over Kashmir. The Security Council closed meeting occurred this week, and it appears, and I've just been watching, just in the last hour, I've been watching some footage coming from that, and it appears as though that Pakistan has not honoured their agreement signed way back in 1972, while India has. So India's all smiles and sunshine today because it realises that it hadn't misbehaved, and it was it was Pakistan who's been the naughty person, and they're going to obviously go to the naughty corner and be asked to to behave, right? So what does that mean? Maybe the Pakistan-China togetherness might, maybe China backs away from that a little. Who knows? Was there any more on the Chinese troops in Hong Kong, Meki? Because I know that they were going to go in. That's all I knew. That's the last thing.
No, they're not. So they haven't gone in. So they're
media
still
silence. Because as soon as we get media silence, it's a controlled environment, right?
Yeah, but the answer is no. Because in fact, if anything, there's been massive amounts of media covering this, which of course is a good thing, right? I'm all for it, by the way. But no, there's nothing untowards now. But having said that, I don't think people understand the impact it would have. It would be catastrophic for China to move into Hong Kong. And China knows this too, right? It's much more likely for China to move into Taiwan than into Hong Kong. and the
That's true.
impact would be much less. So to be clear, let's be clear that is not a it's not a desirable outcome, and it's certainly not something the Chinese will storm towards, because that would be extremely unwise. I mean, you've seen the share price now, right? Can you imagine what would happen to all kinds of economies in the world and all kinds of share markets if the Chinese, in fact, did march into Hong Kong and violently put down, or the People's Army violently put down the protests? No, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. If it did, that would be a trigger point right there. That'd be a trigger.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's the music for the break. We'll catch you on the other side of the very short station break. Take the moment.
Donate if you can.
Absolutely, to donate, yeah. We'll see you on the other side. Oh, I suppose you're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out. That's what it is. Dave Becky's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. And look, if you've liked us, followed us, or I don't know what the other things are, all the social media positive things with a thumbs up, if you've done that, good on you. Thank you very much. You're helping us understand our audience, and it's really appreciated. If you haven't, then do it. If you're listening to this on YouTube, if you're listening to us, thank you for listening to one of our archives. And I really do appreciate you being with us. Now, we hope that since you are on board with us, we hope that your journey through all of this information minefield is an easy one, and that we make it, remember, this is a tinfoil hat zone, so we may talk about topics which may not be in everybody's favour, but we'll do the best. We'll research the dickens out of it and bring you all the information packed into a very tight space. There you go. And thanks, Nighthawk. And thank you, Nighthawk, for providing this platform, for which we're in our 8th year. Thank you. And this is show number 388. And today's topic, I'm going to pass to Mecky.
880 and 300. Today's topic is the megalithic builders. Now, why talk about this? Well, first of all, we have never really had a show about this particular thing, and I'm astonished that we hadn't, because it is so central to our overall argument concerning the hypothesis. But recently, Dave, now I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of time spent online as well. Of course, you can't believe anything. You can't believe everything, I should say, that you find on the net.
Yeah. But
there's an interesting show that's called Strange Evidence that is being broadcast at the moment on I can't remember which channel, to be honest with you, but it's a very interesting show. So what it is, the Strange Evidence show is a show that collates all the accidental or even deliberate camera recordings of all the, I think it's now 7 billion cameras worldwide that record us, IP cameras or otherwise, mostly online or on phones. And there was one episode I watched the other week, I think maybe even the most recent one, where there were 4 segments, and all 4 segments did not have a final explanation. So the way the show is structured, they give you this footage.
Yeah.
They show you, they show you the footage. There are a whole bunch of experts talking about it and analyzing it, and in the video analytics, making sure that the video itself is actually not a hoax or fake. And then they give you a bit of a rundown of what it could be, or an explanation of what it could be. And this particular show had a segment called the skunk ape. It's a creature in Florida. And it was shot by a father and a son. The father is a former Army Ranger, and he was terrified when he shot it. I mean, you can see the creature moving maybe for 2 or 3 seconds across his night vision camera screen. And experts say, this is not fake. This is a real recording. We don't know what it is. And then no one says, well, we have no idea what it is. What's the final analysis? We just don't know. So if you're from Florida or the southern United States, you might have heard of the skunk ape. It's I guess, a cousin of Yeti, Bigfoot, or Alma, or Sasquatch for that matter. And the other segment was around this in the Ukraine. I think it was Ukraine. There was a creature climbing underneath a bridge. It was completely random videoing of that event. And nobody could explain what it was. They had no idea what it was. A person, maybe not. I mean, they just could not agree as to what had happened. There were a couple of other segments as well. My point here is that we've come across a lot of evidence we simply do not have an explanation for. And that shows at least honest enough not to try to shoehorn something into something that doesn't exist. Okay, so they're honest enough to say, and that's why I appreciate that particular show, again, Strange Evidence. They're honest enough to say, hey, we have no idea. Here it is, guys. Look, what do you think? By the same token now, and this is related to some of the other things I've been watching. I watched this excellent documentary on megalithic builders, stone structures and whatnot, and even some structures that you might not consider putting in the same pot as megalithic structures. Petra, I don't know if you're familiar with Petra. It was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I think. Mm-hmm. It's essentially this temple carved into rock, into solid rock. There's another temple carved into solid rock in India, but this one is carved downwards. So Petra is carved inwards, if you will, so on a horizontal line, and the temple in India is carved vertically down into the bedrock, in infinitely harder proposition, yet it was accomplished nonetheless. There it is. The interesting thing, though, is with Petra and a couple of other sites, like the Sphinx Temple in Egypt. It's sort of connected to the pyramid complex, but it's near the Sphinx, and it's really an old temple, right? And they believe that the temple and the Sphinx are of an age. And then other tool marks in South America as well, some in Africa. But the point that the documentary made is they're the same tool marks, not just the same kind of building efforts, if you will, but the same kind of tool marks. So whoever built in Africa, whoever built in South America, whoever built in the Middle East, or elsewhere for that matter, either used the very same tools and techniques, or they were simply the same people that built these things, right? That's really the crux here. And I felt, we have never really discussed this as its own thing in this show, the megalithic structures, who built them and why, and just how global is this megalithic builders civilization? Is it truly spanning the globe? Look, I don't want to spoil the show for you, but the answer is yes. You find megalithic structures built in the same fashion all over the planet. And the key thing to understand here, and this is where it probably pays to go back to our dating show, and the trouble that we have with dating sites and structures and artifacts. Stone is notoriously difficult to date. The most common is probably that is the radiocarbon dating. Essentially, it measures the half-life of radioactive material in an organic substance. So we know, all things being equal, we know how much this C14 isotope decays. Okay, over time, and therefore we can estimate the organic or the age of the organic substance. And what happens quite often is that we find organic material near a site. Let's say there's a huge stone construction somewhere, temple or such, or fortress, and we find the remnants of a campfire or maybe bones that people had eaten or something, right? And then we go, oh, look, we found this organic material near the site, so let's date the site according to the age of the material. Notwithstanding the fact that, of course, that is completely I don't want to say, it's bum backwards.
It's relative dating, right?
It's completely, because we don't know how much later the organic material would have come to the site. I mean, if the rock, if a 1,000-ton rock had squashed a bug when it was placed, that would give us a fair indication as to when the rock was placed, because the bug was squashed when it was constructed. So that, in my mind, that makes sense to use a C14 dating at this point. Right?
C4. Yeah, that's my solution to everything. Is C4.
C4. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's demolition it.
That's my Mythbusters.
Let's take it down. What? I never said that. But no, there goes the money for this one. But the key thing here is to realize that dating is difficult, right? So we've got a problem. So a stone construct, again, a statue, a fortress, a temple, could be 1,000 years old. They could be 100,000 years old. The best way to date something that is exposed to the elements is by looking at the weathering patterns. And just want to quickly talk about the Sphinx here, which is one of the largest monolithic constructions on the planet. Not the largest, but one of the largest, because it's actually hewn out of bedrock. So it wasn't made somewhere and placed there. It was carved out of the bedrock. Okay, so this falls well within the scope of the megalithic builders. And Robert Schoch, Dr. Robert Schoch, a Harvard-trained geologist, looked at it and examined it. It's an old story. I'm sure everybody knows it. But he came up with a scientific fact in his mind that the weathering the Sphinx had experienced was in fact a rain or water weathering. Not flood per se, but rather rain weathering. Not wind, not sand, but the specific weathering marks on the Sphinx are water weathering from heavy rainfalls. And not with, again, interestingly, for the most of the time that we've known of the Sphinx, it was buried up to its neck in sand. It was only Napoleon and his engineers that dug up or dug out the Sphinx to be beheld in its current glory. So when then did Dr. Schoch ask, did we last have this kind of precipitation in Egypt? And he came to the number of 12 to 13,000 years ago, which again coincides with a whole bunch of stuff we've discussed on the show, including the potential meteor impact in the South Indian Ocean and other things as well. Okay, so this time frame of some 14 to 15,000 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. It's a bit stretchy because, again, I mean, over these kinds of distances of time, it has to be stretchy because we can't pinpoint it accurately. They all come together. They all seem to meld together, these things. They meld and they form one coherent picture. Of course, none of the archaeologists believed it, and they go, nonsense. That's just not right. Where's your supporting evidence? I don't need supporting evidence. I've got geology on my side. Thank you very much. Right here it is, geology.
No.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Where's the supporting evidence? Geology.
Silence.
Yes.
Pepsi. Yeah, exactly. It's the shut up defense. And I watched the debates, and I've got it on VHS tape. It was astounding to watch. No, but this is the problem, right? So we have the evidence, and now you extend this over to other structures on the planet, the global conundrum of this megalithic builder structure, and you have to ask yourself a number of questions. And the funny thing is, Dave, as I researched this show, as you probably will agree, we found that people have been scratching about the why for such a long time. I mean, we always ask, well, okay, so you built with 1,000-ton stones, and now in fact 1,800-ton stones. That's 1,800 tons. That's the stone of the pregnant woman in Baalbek, the largest one we have yet found. So you build with those. The answer then becomes, why would you do that? And there's some very interesting observations we have here for you in the show cycle. It's about 60 odd pages. I'm still editing it. But it's about 60 odd pages we're going to take it through, so it's going to take a few shows to get through this material. But yeah, why? Why would you build with stones that size? It makes absolutely no sense, and it boggled the mind, right? It just made no. But it's glossed over. That fact is glossed over, and other things are being discussed. And whenever you raise the question that is conflicting with the mainstream view, you're being ridiculed and sidelined, and your argument no longer seems to carry any value. I find that sad, because I thought that science needs to go wherever the evidence leads. And I can tell you right now, the Baalbek stones, they don't lead to the Romans, not by a long
You're crazy, Mickey. That's what you're doing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Let's ask the experts. So that's why we're doing this megalithic show. And again, it is also to highlight the fact that, yes, there was a global culture at some point, or at least a culture that inspired the rest of the globe, if you get my meaning. So let me explain it this way. Today, we look around the world and we see government buildings built in a certain style. In the White House in Washington, the Capitol building, and pretty much any government building anywhere is built in a certain style, which is you call it neoclassical, if you will. Sort of Greek Roman columns, heavy marble work and things like that. Except maybe Canberra, that's a complete off the cuff.
Don't go there.
No, I won't.
I mean, you can go to Canberra. Canberra's reasonable, but the architecture, not so much.
I know, right? But wherever you go, the Parliament building, even in Vietnam, in China, anywhere you go, it's very much just this neoclassical style. So where does it come from? Well, the Greeks and Romans, and then the Americans and the French were quite enamored with it, the Germans, and that influenced, I guess, global architecture of this kind to some extent. That's my point here. So this kind
Even
of
in Egypt, making the big columns.
Yeah, no, exactly. So the point here is that some culture out there, while it may not have been a global empire per se, its cultural reach appears to have been global, right? So yes, they might have been isolated or only been in power per se in a specific geography, but its cultural impact on the rest of the world was such that these megalithic structures were built.
I got some input here. So,
please.
And that is today, building with bricks, is our cultural influence today. We build either. It depends on where you are in the world, but it'll either be like Besser block style, like Middle East, because they're cheap. It'll be here utilitarian for Besser blocks rather than like a clay-fired brick, but the clay-fired bricks are more the Californian bungalow style in which we build today, right? So across the planet, we've got that style that's ubiquitous with this current culture that we live in. The thing is, Mackie, in 12, 14,000 years from now, they're going to find these bricks and say they must have been able to communicate with each other. They must have been able to, swap styles, exchange information, communicate, must have been able to have a language. It must have done all of those things. Now, when we look back in time, the megalithic builders, hang on a minute, they did the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, much more so than we think. And we'll talk about the megalithic yard, amongst other things here, which was a theory proposed not too long ago by I think it was Alan Butler. But the point is, yes, Dave, this and the one thing, and this is really interesting, the one thing that characterizes a global civilization is units of measure. And we still have globally, the dichotomy or the problem, if you will, with, with metric and imperial, right? Now, funnily enough, it led to some serious issues in the past, but the point is that it is the real thing. Unless you have standardized measures, it is very difficult to interact as a global civilization. You simply don't have the wherewithal of a combined or a common set of units. And everything becomes a lot harder. If you have a standardized set of units, which we will learn, trust me, as we go on with this show, the megalith builders had, or it seems they had, it becomes a lot harder to dismiss any of this out of hand, because that is one of the characteristics of a high civilization. And again, even we today don't have a global standard unit. Not that is valid everywhere. Back in the late 19th, the early 19th, late 18th century, Germany was made up of many nations, as you might know, right? So it's probably 50, 60 different nations. And you could go from Hamburg to Munich, which is a journey of about 900, maybe 1,000 kilometers, right? That's about, I think, about 700 miles, 600 miles, something like that. You would pass between 40 and 50 borders, and you would enter 40 to 50 different units or measurement systems on your journey within Germany alone, right? This is only a couple of hundred years ago. So the standardization of units of measure, any kind of measure, is one of the key indicators of a global high civilization. And you cannot underestimate the significance of that, right? That's the point I'm trying to make. And again, as we will learn, that is exactly what we have when we look at these megalithic structures. A common unit of measure. Okay, very, very important to realize this. Anyway, so here we are with the megalithic structure. So the key question is, and I want to repeat this because it's important, why, and this is the fundamental question, around this topic. In fact, it's the fundamental question for anyone looking at this. Why did the people that built these structures, I'm talking about Pumapunku, I'm talking about Chichen Itza, I'm talking about Peru, I'm talking about the pyramid, I'm talking about the Sphinx, I'm talking about my favorite site in the world, the Jupiter Temple in Baalbek. All of those places, the Easter Island, even in the Pacific, as we're learning, trust me. Why did they build in stones that size? What could possibly have possessed them to do it? Now, again, it may be that we will simply never understand this because we just don't think in the same way. Or for them, it was like, oh well, why not, Mackie? It's just what we do. It's our thing. Why do you think we should not do this? Right? I mean, let me put it this way. Today we build skyscrapers, and we don't think much of it, right? We build all kinds of enormous structures. We got the tallest towers in the world are being built today. But it's easy for us because we construct in steel and concrete. It's really easy. We can do it, right? The materials are strong. We can do it, and we don't have to lift heavy things. So for us, it's not an everyday undertaking, but we can do it easily enough. We can't lift these stones, not cost effectively. Nobody today would work in stones this size. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, let me repeat this. It makes no sense from any point of view you could possibly want to put here. It makes no sense. But we certainly build well, but we don't build for eternity. These stone structures will be here long after we are gone and the rats and cockroaches have taken over the planet. Okay? Our structures will not be, because again, they're built in concrete and steel. And for all its power and non-corrosiveness and all that, it will eventually wear away and corrode away. And the steel and the concrete will be washed away and worn away, and depending on whatever fate befalls us, sooner rather than later. Okay, let's make no mistake. We do not build for eternity. These folk did. Again, different mindset, and let's cast our mind back to the possibility of immortality for a second. Yeah, you with me there? Mm-hmm. The reason you would build like is because maybe you expect to be around in a long time from now. Okay, why else would you do it? Right? Just food for thought here, right? Because again, these guys and girls, I'm sure, were around a long time before us. So look, let's look at a megalithic structure. So I'm just editing. I'm actually up to page 50, Dave, of editing. Woo!
Awesome.
As I was speaking, I know, right? Now, let's start with some simple stuff. We go with where mainstream science leads us here initially, and then we're going to depart from that somewhat drastically. But a megalith is a large stone. That's all it means. Big stone. Mega means big, and lith is stone. Neolith means new stone. Paleolith means old stone, so you got the old Stone Age, new Stone Age, the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. You can impress your friends with your knowledge. It's nice. I just wish people would speak plainly, right, in their common language, but no, it's ancient Greek and Latin here for us scientists. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it's a large stone that has been used to construct a structure or monument, either alone or together with other stones. The word megalithic describes structures made of such large stones without the use of mortar or concrete. That's important. No mortar or concrete. Okay? The megalithic structures we're going to discuss here have neither mortar nor concrete, representing periods of prehistory characterized by such constructions. For later periods, the word monolith with an overlapping meaning is more likely to be used. Monolith means single stone. Monolithic just means a single stone. The word megalith comes from the ancient Greek, megas meaning great, and lithos meaning stone. Megalith also denotes one or more rocks hewn in definite shapes for special purposes. It has been used to describe buildings built by people from many parts of the world, living in many different periods, we think. But even mainstream science acknowledges that this describes buildings built by people from many different parts of the world. The term was first used in reference to Stonehenge by Algernon Herbert. Algernon. We don't have names like that anymore, Dave. Algernon. Yeah, I know. Algernon. In 18 49. A variety of large stones are seen as megaliths, with the most widely known megaliths not being tombs. The construction of these structures took place mainly in the Neolithic period, as we've learned, the New Stone Age, though earlier Mesolithic, which means the Middle Stone Age, examples are also known, and continued into the Chalcolithic period, that's the Copper Age, and the Bronze Age. I don't know why they call the Bronze Age, but they call the Copper Age, Dave, the Chalcolithic period. Why? Why is that?
Maybe charcoal was used to... I don't know. I'll be quiet.
It's just... No, don't be quiet. I need you here, buddy. Shut up, you.
I'm telling to myself now.
Self-censorship in action. Dave, why don't you take us through the middle Mesolithic or the Middle Stone Age period here, timeline of megalithic constructions.
Yeah, so that's around about 9,500 BC. Think of it in that location, that time. The location construction in Asia Minor, Göbekli Tepe, for instance, from Proto-Haitian, or else a yet-to-be-discovered culture. Because remember, we're open to change. The textbooks aren't. The oldest religious structure in the world, Göbekli Tepe. There might be more.
So they say.
That's right. There might be more older than that. But, we can only have what we have at the moment. But we're willing to accept that there's more. Submerged around about maybe 7,400 BC, a 12-meter-long monolith, probably weighing around about 15, I suppose, metric tons, found 40 meters under the water in the Strait of Sicily, southwest of Sicily, whose function is still unknown. 7th or 8th millennium BC, problematic date, by optically stimulated luminescence, remember once again, check our dating show, of Quinta di Queimada, Menhir, in western Algarve, that's in Portugal, a very early period of megalithic activity in the Algarve, older than in the rest of Europe, and in parallel to some extent with the famous Anatolian site of Göbekli Tepe. Wow, parallel to some extent, Meki.
Yeah, and the key thing here is, of course, we have no idea which civilization built this. They say Proto-Hattian, which means a pre or a quasi-Hattian civilization, or in fact, more to the point and more truthful, a yet-to-be-discovered culture. We have not the faintest idea who built and buried
it. There it is. Good luck with that.
No idea. And the way, and I want to quickly again speak about how we discovered it. There was a guy, a farmer, and he was removing some rocks and trees from his field. Okay, so he started digging, and lo and behold, he found Göbekli Tepe. This wasn't some kind of ingenious scientific endeavor that brought the best minds together that has researched for decades and found, this is the site where we should dig. Yes, let's.
They didn't have satellites scanning the ground and looking for things beneath it. No.
No, it was a guy digging up his rocks.
I want some flat land for farming. Thanks very much. Watch this rock here. It's getting bigger.
Bingo. And the problem here, of course, is exactly that. Most archaeological discoveries that we make are complete coincidences. And if you cast your mind back to our shows, and even if you do your own research, the phrase found during construction of blah, or found during the excavation of X. That's how these things are found. That's how these discoveries are made. This is not scholarship. Scholarship comes after, when they come in and say, we know exactly what this is, thank you very much. Right? No clue what it is, but we'll somehow shoehorn it into our view of the world. Don't you worry about that, it'll happen. And they do. They couldn't do it with Göbekli Tepe because it is so far outside of everything. It just couldn't. There's not a shoehorn, Dave, big enough.
That's right. They couldn't say, look, it's clearly just some people that used to live just around the corner and they must have built it while they were there. But there's nothing. There's no records. There's nothing of anyone anywhere close to it. And then, of
Well,
course, the big question, Mackie, the one that we're asking, everybody's asking, is why was it intentionally buried?
exactly.
There's that
Exactly
Morpheus
right.
face again.
Yeah. No, but look, that's exactly right. Oh, you don't think that's air you're breathing? No, but it's really it's the mystery of it, right? And this is something we have lost. I want to quickly say this because I was thinking about this all day, Dave, and I know I will forget it if I don't mention it now. As we are discussing these mysteries, I want to call them, and phenomena, and we bring you show after show every Sunday or Saturday night, depending on where you are in the world. And we've done this now for the last 8 years, or for the past 8 years. And we've now done 388 of these things, with close to 900 hours of content. It became clear to me that what we are missing, and this is when I was researching some of the 19th century texts relating to Baalbek especially, we've lost a sense of proportion, we've lost a sense of wonder, and we have lost a sense of the possible. Most of us have very few meaningful practical skills. Very few of us. I know I'm being general. Unless you're a tradesman or tradeswoman, for that matter, or you're an engineer, specifically, someone that does something with their hands. You don't have any practical skills, and that's not a judgment on you. I mean, I'm similar, in some ways. It's just the way that our civilization has developed. Most of us have absolutely no practical skills at all. And we've got very few comparison points when it comes to looking at the natural world and the cultural world, meaning things that we've built, and drawing any kind of conclusion. That's why the flat earthers are becoming so popular, right? Because we no longer have that intimate knowledge of being out and about in the world, walking around, walking on hills, building things with our hands, understanding the effort required to do things. What we see these days, we see these mega constructions that are being undertaken by massive cranes, and the bridges that are being built, and the buildings that are being built, and the channels that are being dug, and the dams that are being put forth to dam the rivers. That's all we have come to expect it. Nobody fully understands anymore, I think, just how much effort it requires, unless they're intimately involved with the constructions of these things. We just take it for granted. And that's a massive problem, because we look at these ancient sites and you go, yeah, well, they did it, they used pulleys and levers, and the Romans did a whole bunch of building anyway. So, yeah, that's probably what happened. No.
Go ahead,
No.
I'll wait for you. Go and show me how you can lift a, how many
Exactly.
1,000-ton stone, Mickey? Forget it.
Well, it's in 1,800 tons. 1,800 tons. And I said, yeah, exactly, Dave. Good luck to you. So, this is really the problem we have today. We have lost the sense of wonder and the sense of actual understanding of what it takes to do things, because we don't do them anymore. We don't. Our lives, and I see this. I'm 50 years old now. Right? I'm old, and I've lived 50 years actively, and I hope in my life as much as I can, thinking about things and whatnot. But in that time, I was never required to dig a trench or build a house. Now, I've worked as a laborer. Yes, I have. Certain summers I've done physical work, right? But not as my main income. It certainly didn't really. I never really received any training in that space. And these days I work in an office, which means I'm on the phone a lot and I sit down looking at a screen. That's my day. I'm not out and about building things, understanding what it takes. Understanding the complexities of materials and structures, and how you have to put it together so it doesn't fall down. And most of us aren't either educated in this. We just take it for granted, like I said. But because we are, everybody else gets away with everything, right? False flag attacks. I know this is going far afield now, but we no longer understand what it would take to do that. We no longer understand what it would take to bring down a building, or why, in fact, anybody would do it. We no longer understand what it would take to build something, an amazing structure like the pyramids. They're there. They were built. So clearly, Mackie, they had 1 million slaves, 100,000 slaves, or like Zahi Hawass says, the former head of the Egyptology ministry in Egypt. He said, "Oh, it's love. Love is that built the pyramids. It was love." Okay, sure.
That's when you've run out of descriptions of how it was built.
Yeah, it was love. It's what he said. I swear to God. I see. He said that it was love, the love for the pharaoh. Now, it's really quite amazing, and some cultures even said it. The ancient I think it was the Incas. When the Spanish suggested that they had built all these amazing sites in these large monolithic or megalithic structures, they said, "No, we didn't build those. They were here when we got here."
That's right.
And yet we still insist on attributing it to the Incas, the Aztecs, the Olmecs, in South America. No, they built it. No. They told us we didn't do this. It's human nature to take credit. It's human nature to take credit. Of course it is. No, we didn't build them. If we went back in time to when the Temple of Jupiter was built, and we asked them, "Hey, guys, who built the platform that you built your Jupiter temple on?" And the Romans will say, "No idea, but it was there and we used it." The Romans were nothing if not sensible and practical engineers. That's a huge platform. Let's use it for something. Yes, good idea. Let's do it. Because the question is, why would you ever build a temple in that area? So far away from everything. It makes absolutely no sense to have such an impressive structure built where it was, unless, of course, the platform already existed. In which case, I've got the platform, the hard work is done, I'll just put a temple on top of it. Thank you very much. Well, that's the thing, though, right? The Romans were exceedingly practical. Cruel and unusual, but practical. And it is this practicality which I find most disturbing, because none of these things are practical. Like I said before, they're not practical ways to build. It's just not sensible to build this way. And not just them, the Sumerians said, "No, we didn't do any of this. The gods taught us all of this." They said the gods taught us. They could have said, "No, we invented agriculture. We invented beer. We invented all this stuff." Yeah,
Sure
we did. No, they taught us. They taught us. So all over the world, native populations told the Johnny-come-lately Europeans, no, we didn't build any of this. And in fact, the megalithic structures in Europe that are our own, we have no idea about either. Stonehenge, who built that? I'm not sure, don't know. How old is it? Can't really tell you. Right, well, we've got some ideas. Yeah, no, but and then you look at the complex of Karnak in France, where you've got thousands and thousands of these dolmens, right? These are like menhirs. They're like massive stones that were put into rows and rows. To what end is the question? We don't know. Dave, do you know where we find the most megalithic or dolmen constructions in the world? I don't know. I had no idea before I researched this.
No, where?
Korea.
Wow.
What? He goes, "What? Korea, Mackie? Are you sure?" Yeah. Absolutely. There's this place, Korean, it's the I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure, Gangwa dolmens. Gangwa dolmens in Korea. It has the highest concentration of dolmens. Now, dolmens are like, if you read as a child Asterix and Obelix, Obelix carries a dolmen on his back. It's like a elongated egg-shaped stone in several tons, right? That's a dolmen. It's a megalithic or monolithic structure. Now, yeah, so they're in Korea, and they have the highest concentration of dolmens in the world, with over 30,000, which means there's between 40 and 50% of the world's total in Korea. Okay, and some of these dolmens have capstones weighing up to 300 tons in Gongcha. It's just a little thing there. So this is a global phenomenon. Is my point. It's a global phenomenon. And these dolmens, it's actually two stones. Sorry, the menhir is the elongated egg. The dolmen is actually two stones on which is a capstone. So it's like a pie shaped thing, or double T if you want to call it that. That's a dolmen. Anyway, my point is that we have no idea why they're there, why they were built, and why you would ever bother to do it this way, right? So this is why we're doing this show. This is because the sense of wonder and the sense of asking the appropriate question has been lost deliberately. I think our education, if you want to call it that, has become so focused on making us into perfect little cogs for the machine that actual education, actual understanding, actual knowledge transfer, and the ability to process new information into a coherent whole is almost lost on most of us. It's almost lost. As long as you get a job, buy a house, which is becoming increasingly impossible in Australia, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to be okay, right, Dave? You're going to be okay. You're a little cock there, and you get along and just live your life and don't ask any questions. So shut up there. You shut up now. Because it doesn't help anyone. That's really the thing. So we have created generations of people asking the wrong questions, not even understanding questions should be asked. That ends my little explanation as to why we do this and why it's important. It is because what Dave and I want to do here is reignite a sense of wonder, reignite an interest in the unusual. Yeah, I mean, this is amazing stuff. Think about it. I can't convey enough how important it is that we need to understand this. We don't know how this was done. We don't know who did it, and we don't know why they did it. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
We have no idea, and so this is the past looking forward. Quantum mechanics makes absolutely no sense, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing, but we don't understand it. We are living in an age of ignorance. There's a whole bunch of stuff we see the effects of, or the end result, as it were. The construction of the actual sites are there. They're built. You can look at them, go touch them if you want. And we also conduct experiments in the quantum realm. Yeah, they are. We can do that, and neither of which can be explained by us. Neither. Right? Let's take a sit. And I don't care what all these scientists in the world say, and this, they can, publish all the papers they want. All of these are just theories, and nobody is scratching the surface. I'm all for true science trying to help us out here, 100%. It's absolutely important and paramount that empirical science goes as far as it can. And then very quickly, before I go back to the text, Dave, we're going to have a show around alternatives for empirical science, because I've been thinking about this. Look at economics and psychology. Okay, these are two sciences which like to be sciences, but they're not, because they deal with human behavior and human motivation and human beings at large. Therefore, completely impossible to standardize anything. Autism, as an example, is a spectrum disorder. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that you can have autism, but you can have it more or less severely, and you will display different manifestations.
Yep.
So you might not in fact have autism at all, but they call it that because it's an autism spectrum disease. You could call it, the Monday wobblies or blue fever, and you would be just as right.
Monday
it makes no
wobblies.
difference. Well, you could, right?
I'm sure that's even a thing as well. So is Watch Made
sure
Me.
Now it is. But so you give it a name and you classify it, and the reason it was done, and it was a very interesting book you should read by Ron Johnson, I think the Psychopath something or other. I can't remember what it was called, but it's really good. He was the guy that wrote the book Them, Living with Extremists. I highly recommend the book. Ron Johnson, a British journalist. But he said, and there's he outlines there was a guy in I think it was the 60s or 70s that wanted to classify psychological disorders. So he did, okay, and he tried to shoehorn all kinds of things into the catalog, as it were. Now, and the same thing happened with economics. We've got a whole spectrum of human emotion and human motivation and human behavior, and all the economic models in the past were predicated upon the assumption that all human beings act as rational players. As rational players in their own self-interest. That's, of course, complete nonsense. It's not true. And markets are not self-regulating. And the biggest failure of this attitude, of the empirical science attitude toward economics, came out in Alan Greenspan's admission that he was wrong all his life. They had taught economics as a hard science, as an empirical science. You can actually put into equations, and you can come up, all kinds of curves and J curve, and and all kinds of wonderful things that you can predict it, and you'd be fine. No, wrong. This is, and people ask me, well, where does empirical sciences fail? It fails in psychology, psychiatry, and it fails in economics. It will fail in every single science where human beings are involved. If we measure the physical world, like physics and chemistry, even biology, right? Where you've got certain chemical processes, certain physical realities like gravity, empirical science works a treat because it's repeatable. And no matter how many times you cut open a bean, chances are you will always find the same basic structure in a bean, right? Unless it's a mutated bean, but that's outside the norm. But you cut a bean open 1,000,000 times, it'll be, the same thing looking at you. If you measure gravity on planet Earth, right, you will always come up with very much the same measurement. unless you can in certain special spots on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that you can cloak it all in mathematics, which is awesome, right? Which gives you certainty. But if you follow the mathematics, it leads you down the quantum path, and all of a sudden, all certainty goes out the window. So yes, where you started. Maybe we should have gone. We should have stayed Newtonian. We should have stayed with Newton.
That's right. Stayed there.
Forget
Be
Einstein.
happy.
Forget Heisenberg. Yeah, that's right. Forget it. Because it doesn't get you anywhere. So I needed to give you this preamble, if you will, for you to understand why we're even bothering to talk about these megalithic, monolithic, and otherwise structures. Because I want to bring back the sense of wonder to you, and the question as to how and why this was done. Not just accepting it as a fact. Ask the question. See what kinds of answers you get. Which brings me back to the text. The Neolithic constructions, I want to quickly run through it because it's boring. But between the years 7,000 BC and 3,000 BC, which is what they're normally, that's the Neolithic or the New Stone Age period, there was constructions in Proto-Canaanite Israel, in Portugal. There was also the emergence of the Atlantic Neolithic period, the age of agriculture along the western shores of Europe during the 6th millennium BC, the pottery culture of La Almagara in Spain nearby, and perhaps precedent from Africa construction in Malta, the Scoba temples in Brittany, Banyanes and Bougon, the constructions in South Egypt, Nabta Playa, construction in South Spain, the Dome and the Albeter in Cadiz, constructions in Brittany, Karnak, I just mentioned, Portugal, the Great Dolmen of Zambujeiro, France, Corsica, Spain, England and Wales, construction sites in Andalusia, construction in Proto-Canaanite Israel as well, again. Then in 3700 BC, construction in Ireland, it's in Nokivea and elsewhere. Constructions in England, the Mulberry Rings, Malta, again. And we're going to talk about the Ajtra temple and compare it to Göbekli Tepe, believe it or not, as part of the show. Constructions in Spain, yet again, in Malta, in France, in Germany, in Sardinia, circular graves in Ireland, New Grange, everybody knows New Grange, in the Netherlands, in Germany, Sweden and Denmark, France, Malta, Russia, Sardinia, France again, and many sites in Sicily, Belgium, and circular earthworks in Britain, which are the henges we were spoken about 3000 BC. Now, all of these dates are completely arbitrary for the most part because we can't date them properly. We simply cannot. Sometimes we can, and that's all good, but the actual construction of the stoneworks we cannot date. We can date related material. And what I mean by that is, let's say you find an abandoned stone structure and you move into it and you make it your own, you add to it as well. We will see examples of that, by the way. And does it mean you built it? No, you inhabited it for a while. And it's important to understand that, but you didn't build it. But you made it your own and you improved it, or you made it livable. And then you move out again. But when I come back to it, and you were the last person to inhabit it, I will go, oh, this person inhabited 2,000 years ago. There's a fire built here, and they built new walls. So clearly they built the entire structure. No, they did not. They simply moved in and might have extended it. So this is really the critical understanding here. We do not know really how old the stone structure is. Not really. It is hard to measure. It is hard to date, because one of the assumptions with any dating methodology is that the conditions now and then are the same. Same kind of solar radiation, same kind of cosmic radiation, same kind of everything, right? So, because if you have a change in any of these, your dating goes right out the window. Why is that, Mackie? Because if you have a change in radiation, it affects the isotopes or other dating mechanisms that you can use to determine the site of an age or crystal or stone. Because it changes the count, the molecular count of the isotopes or whatever else you're measuring there. Okay, it only works if the assumption is that the conditions are the same today as they were then, which is a huge assumption. Okay, because we're pretty sure that, well, we know for a fact that the Earth's magnetism had changed. We know that the Earth's magnetic poles have flipped.
That's right.
Right? So we know all of that. Right? So we don't know really how old these structures really are, and we certainly do not know really who built them. We've got ideas, but not a lot. So Dave, very quickly, maybe we can finish the Chalcolithic and Bronze Age.
I think we can.
And then, perfect.
Okay, so 2500 BC, 2400 BC, both of those times, construction in Brittany there, and Menec and Camario, and elsewhere, Italy, Sardinia, Scotland, plus the climax of the megalithic, the bell beaker culture in Iberia as well, Germany and the British Isles, stone circle at Stonehenge, that's one of the henges, with the bell beakers. The Neolithic period gave way to the Chalcolithic, the age of copper. The bell beaker culture was dominant in Britain, and hundreds of smaller stone circles were built in the British Isles at the time. But Meki, you know what it doesn't cover? Those South African circles. I know.
I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is completely only Europe and Middle East here. Which is, I find, a very sad reflection on where mainstream science. And I took this off the scientific sites, right? I mean, this is what they put forward.
This is the lockstep agreement.
Yep. We do know Africa happened. Obviously, it's there. We can physically touch it. Asia as well. They're completely not mentioned. The Americas aren't mentioned. So it's a little sad, to be honest, to see this. But if you take it from a purely European view, that's what you get, and that's really where we are, right? It's a shame.
So the Bronze Age from 2000 BC to 1200 BC, pretty much. Construction in Brittany, yet again, Italy, Sicily, Scotland. It ended the Chalcolithic period, and it gave way to the Bronze Age in Western and Northern Europe. There's more constructions in Italy. Giovinazzo in Sardinia started the Neragic civilization. The constructions in Portugal, for instance, there's the burial of the Egtved girl in Denmark, whose body is today one of the best preserved examples of its kind, for instance, and there's the last vestiges of the megalithic tradition in the Mediterranean and elsewhere come to an end during the general population upheaval known to ancient history as the invasion of the Sea People.
Correct. Look, we've only got a few moments left. Next time we're going to go into some detail into Göbekli Tepe, Middle Eastern megaliths, African megaliths, Asian megaliths, and then East Asia, and then actually different styles: Indian megaliths, Southeast Asia, South Asia, then the Pacific megaliths, the Baalbek excavations. There's so much stuff here. It's cool, and we're gonna post the pictures. I think Dave is going to do an awesome job in splicing them into this podcast on YouTube, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have a look at a few of our ancient ancestors or contemporaries, really, as well. So there's a whole bunch of material still coming your way, and like I said, it's about 50 pages all together that we have. And a lot of this is going to be photographic. It's going to be a lot of pictures, and it would really help if you watch the video on YouTube, not just listen to it, I guess, because then you can see those pictures as well. It would help illustrate the points that we're making, especially around the size of the constructions, as well as the earlier constructions and the older constructions and the younger constructions. So what we will see constructions that are quite old, the stoneworks, and then very obviously there are some really recent additions to it, and they're completely different kind. And you can look at the Jupiter Temple as well if you wanted to in Baalbek and look at the platform, and then you can look at the stoneworks that were built on top, the Jupiter Temple. But there is another one which people believe was built in the medieval ages. That's like a fortress, which is quite different yet again. And each construction is more primitive than the preceding one. So the oldest being the most perfect and most impressive. That is the platform, of course.
Yeah,
and we find this a lot.
That's the most unusual, right? That there was a civilization building super megalithic structures.
Correct.
And then we came along as humans with our limited capacities and started building on top of what they'd already built.
Yes.
And we can see
Correct.
that we can see that in Mayan, and we can see that with the Jupiter Temple. And Egypt, for that matter, right? And even today, Meki, you know, when we found the Gympie pyramid, it just got deconstructed to be able to be used in walls,
Yeah.
right? And different things around. So, you know, you take advantage of what was already there. Not saying you just build next to it, but this is what happened. This is what we can see, and it's completely evident. The stone style.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's still, it raises that question. Is what I want to leave you with. It raises that question: how, when, who, why, and what? Right?
Correct. And we should never stop asking those questions. It's really, really important. Now, listening to the station, I hope that is your mindset anyway. But look, we never know, right? But be aware. Be aware. There's more between heaven and earth than our school teachings would have us know. And that's a free translation from what
1940. Yeah.
What Goethe said. He said, es sind mehr Dinge zwischen Himmel und Erde, als unsere Schulweisheit sich träumen lässt. There you go. But no, it's something. It's a thing, Dave. I'm so grateful to be able to do this. And again, Nighthawk, thank you very much for providing this platform. Keeping the blue pillars. Was it the red pill or the blue? Which was the good pill, Dave? The blue pill or the red pill?
Oh, I have to research that now. They're good on you.
Yeah, I can't remember. So whatever the good pill is,
I took both.
That's for yeah, just in case.
Yeah,
we are trying to keep that alive. That spirit of inquisition and
because you know the chemicals in the water.
The chemicals in the water. That's right. It doesn't matter which pill you take. Just drink the water.
That's right. It's all in the water. That's at least that guarantees that they're going to have the thing. Anyway, so look, there's the music. Have a great whatever there is left of whatever weekend part of where you are on the planet. Stay tuned for a Jer Bears roundtable and be part of it. Dial in, talk to him, bring up topics, ask questions. We'll see you next week for show 389. Take care.